He builds rockets. He builds cars. He builds AI.
It's the same techniques. It's just a robot with arms and legs instead of a robot with wheels.
SpaceX, Tesla, now you've got Solar City and the solar...
Are you sincerely trying to save the world?
Well, I'm trying to do good things, yeah.
He bought one of the most influential social platforms on Earth. And somehow, all of that still doesn't fully explain why Elon Musk has become one of the most polarizing people alive. Because the problem with Elon Musk is not that he's just another billionaire with strong opinions. The problem is that he has crossed into something much bigger than that. He now sits at the intersection of technology, media, politics, finance, and public attention in a way very few people ever have. By March 2026, Musk still leads Tesla and SpaceX, remains the owner of X, and has tied his AI ambitions even more tightly to the rest of his empire through the merger of xAI into SpaceX. That is an extraordinary concentration of power around one personality. So in this video, we're going to break down the real problem with Elon Musk, not the cartoon version, not the fanboy version, not the lazy genius or villain version. We're going to look at where he came from, how he built one of the most remarkable business empires of the modern era, why so many people admired him, what changed, and why the same qualities that made him wildly successful may also be the reason so many people now see him as a risk. And before we get into it, subscribe to the channel, because this isn't just a story about one man. It's a story about what happens when the person building the future also wants to dominate the conversation about it. To understand the problem, you first have to understand the appeal. Elon Musk was born on June 28, 1971, in Pretoria, South Africa. He has spoken publicly about being bullied as a child, became interested in computers very early, and sold a video game he created when he was around 12 years old. He later moved to Canada, studied at Queen's University and then the University of Pennsylvania, where he earned degrees in economics and physics, before heading into the US startup world. That backstory matters because Musk's image was never simply rich guy gets richer. It was outsider with huge ideas, bets everything on impossible things. For a lot of people, that felt compelling, even inspiring. And early on, the results backed up the myth. His first major company, Zip2.
We found that an office was actually cheaper than an apartment in Silicon Valley. So we got this dinky little office that had a leaky roof. It was just the nastiest place you can imagine.
And you lived in it too.
And I lived in it too and showered at the YMCA. This lasted.
It was sold in 1999 for about $307 million. Then came X.com, which evolved into PayPal. When eBay bought PayPal in 2002 for $1.5 billion, Musk walked away with roughly $180 million. At that point, most founders would have diversified, protected the money, and become respectable. Musk did the opposite. He poured capital into electric cars, private rockets, solar energy, and a series of increasingly ambitious bets that sounded unrealistic until they started working. That is why this conversation is so difficult. Because Elon Musk is not famous for nothing. Tesla really did help force the global auto industry to take electric vehicles seriously. SpaceX really did transform launch economics and prove that orbital-class rocket boosters could be landed and reused at scale. Reuters reported in late 2025 that SpaceX remained the only company repeatedly landing and reflying the main stage of an orbital rocket, with Falcon 9 boosters having landed more than 300 times and reflown more than 200 times.
Do you see them both light up?
Starlink also became a major communications network, with Reuters reporting in March 2026 that Starlink was expected to reach around 12 million users by year-end. These are not small achievements, they are world-changing ones, and that's exactly why Musk is more complicated than the average controversial billionaire. If he were just loud, he'd be easier to dismiss. If he were just rich, he'd be easier to ignore. But he has been right repeatedly about things that governments, incumbents, and experts underestimated. And that success has made him more than a businessman. It has made him infrastructure. By March 2026, Musk's influence spans Tesla, SpaceX, Starlink X, and the AI company xAI, which was merged into SpaceX in early 2026 in a deal Reuters reported valued SpaceX at $1 trillion and xAI at $250 billion. That merger made the concentration of the influence around him even harder to ignore. And this is where admiration starts turning into anxiety.
Get done. And Mars, the Mars atmosphere is carbon dioxide, which at first may seem better, but actually it ends up being worse because
Because the same traits that helped Musk win in engineering are not automatically good for society. By almost every serious account, Musk is obsessive. He dives into technical details, questions assumptions, pushes teams brutally hard, and demands timelines that other people think are impossible. In a rocket company or a car factory that can produce breakthroughs, it can cut costs, accelerate iteration, and force people to solve problems they otherwise would have accepted. That mentality is a huge part of why SpaceX and Tesla achieved what they did, but it also creates a management style built on pressure, instability, and fear. What works inside a launch program does not necessarily work when your reach extends into politics, AI, and public communication. And that brings us to the contradiction at the center of Elon Musk. He often speaks in grand civilizational language. He talks about sustainable energy, making humanity multi-planetary, protecting consciousness, and pushing the future forward. That long-range vision is part of why so many talented people have worked for him. But sitting right next to that language is behavior that can look impulsive, abrasive, vindictive, and openly reckless. For years, people tolerated that contradiction because the products kept winning. Then, he bought Twitter, renamed it X, and the contradiction became impossible to ignore. When Musk bought Twitter in 2022, he framed it as a free speech mission. He argued that open debate was essential to democracy and that the platform had become too biased and too censorious. To be fair, those concerns were not invented out of thin air. There were real arguments about moderation, transparency, and government pressure on social platforms. But what happened after Musk took over made a lot of people realize that his version of free speech often looked less like a principle and more like a personal instrument. One of the earliest warning signs came in December 2022 when Twitter suspended multiple journalists who had been reporting on Musk. Reuters reported that the move drew global backlash before the accounts were restored. That moment stuck with people because it revealed something important. The self-described free speech absolutist seemed very comfortable limiting speech when it became personally inconvenient. That doesn't automatically make him uniquely hypocritical by billionaire standards, but it did undermine the moral clarity of the case he was making. The pattern didn't stop there. Under Musk, X loosened moderation in some areas, but also became more personalized around his own preferences and influence. At the same time, the platform's business suffered. Reuters reported in 2023 that Musk's content moderation shift complicated efforts to win back advertisers concerned about harmful content and brand safety. That concern eventually turned into a major legal and business fight. X sued major advertisers and the World Federation of Advertisers, arguing there had been an illegal boycott. Then, in March 2026, a federal judge dismissed that case with prejudice. That mattered because it was one of the clearest market verdicts on Musk's stewardship of X. Many brands simply no longer trusted the environment he had created. And this is where the problem gets bigger than hypocrisy. It becomes a problem of concentration. Because X is not just a social platform sitting off to the side anymore. It has been tied directly to Musk's AI ambitions, first through xAI, and then through the 2026 SpaceX xAI merger. Reuters reported that the XXAI relationship was valuable, partly because XAI gained access to data and distribution through X, and then the later SpaceX tie-up made that ecosystem even more integrated. So one person now sits on a stack that includes communication infrastructure, AI systems, satellite internet, and launch capability. Even if you admire Musk, that is an extraordinary amount of power to place around one individual's instance. And then politics entered the picture more directly. Musk spent heavily in U.S. politics in 2024 and then joined Donald Trump's administration in 2025.
Hundreds of billions of dollars are going to be adding up, and they're going to continue to add. It'll be interesting, really interesting to see what the final number is going to be. But again, Elon.
As a senior advisor involved in the Department of Government Efficiency push, Reuters reported in February 2025 that the White House said Musk was not formally the dog decision-maker, but he was clearly central to the effort and to the image of it. Then, in May 2025, Reuters reported that he left the Trump administration after a turbulent run marked by sweeping cuts, controversy, and his criticism of the Republican tax and budget bill. Trump said Musk would remain a close advisor even after his formal exit. That episode mattered because it blurred the line even further between Musk the entrepreneur and Musk the political actor. Tesla has been paying for that blur. Reuters reported in March 2025 that Musk's support for Germany's far-right AfD hurt Tesla's image and sales in parts of Europe.
So, yeah. Before 2027, let me put it that way. When you get in, you'll see it's really quite a wild experience.
And by March 2026, Reuters was reporting serious concern that Tesla's delivery decline could stretch into a third year. Analysts were pointing not only to product issues and competition, but also to the backlash around Musk himself. That is another core part of the problem. When one founder becomes inseparable from multiple brands, his impulses stop being personal. They become strategic liabilities. And there's another layer to this that most people miss. Musk doesn't just run companies, he sets signals. When he talks about AI, industries react. When he posts about politics, millions of people absorb it as more than just opinion. When he changes direction, entire ecosystems move with him. That kind of influence is not automatically bad. But influence without consistency creates confusion, and confusion at scale creates instability. Musk's communication style is unusually direct, unusually fast, and unusually emotional for someone with this much reach. In engineering, speed is an advantage. In public communication, speed can become chaos. A single post becomes a headline becomes a narrative becomes public belief. That is power of a very different kind than building a car or landing a rocket. And maybe that is the deepest problem with Elon Musk. He works best when reality pushes back in hard, measurable ways. Physics pushes back, manufacturing pushes back, orbital mechanics pushes back. The rocket either lands or it doesn't. But public discourse is not like that. Politics is not like that. Social trust is not like that.
Standpoint, so it's trying to forget as much as possible. So when teaching a course, you have to explain to kids.
On X, in AI, and in politics, there is no clean physical feedback loop telling him when the style that works in a factory is eroding the system itself. There is only attention, reaction, and leverage. And Musk seems unusually energized by all three. That's what makes him so compelling. It may also be what makes him so dangerous. Because the same person who helped drag the future into the present also seems increasingly willing to destabilize the present in the process. And the bigger his empire gets, the harder it becomes to separate private impulse from public consequence. So what is the problem with Elon Musk? It's not that he's stupid. It's not that he's fake. It's not even that he's always wrong. The problem is that he has become too powerful while remaining too impulsive, too conflict-driven, and too willing to treat contradiction as a feature rather than a flaw. He wants to be the builder, the dissenter, the platform owner, the political player, the outsider, the insider, and the man who alone can see what others miss. That combination can be incredibly productive. It can also be deeply corrosive. And in a healthy society, No one gets that much room to be both indispensable and unchecked. That may be the real problem with Elon Musk. Not that he's changing the world, but that he now has the power to change too many parts of it at once. Now I want your take. Is Elon Musk still, on balance, pushing the world forward, or has the concentration of power around him become the bigger story? Let me know in the comments.